So a lot of people were brought back to life during the war arc. This was in order to bolster the powers of both sides in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Basically, every ninja of any amount of renown was brought back to fight in this war. It was like an Avengers meetup of every ninja who's ever been important. And I mean like every ninja, even ninjas we had never met, like Pakura, the Scorch Release user. For some reason, some ninjas were left out. Ninjas who are arguably much more important than Pakura, the Scorch Release user. The one people talk about the most is Jiraiya, and we've already made a video about why Jiraiya wasn't reincarnated. Go ahead and watch that if you're curious about it. But the second one that people bring up is Sakumo Hatake. For those of you who don't remember who that is, it's Kakashi's father, also known as the White Fang, the hero of Konoha's Second Great Shinobi World War. I mean, when you think Second Great Shinobi World War, you probably think the legendary Sani, but they were losing in the Second Great Shinobi World War, while Sakumo Hatake was leading an offensive campaign in the Land of Wind that literally earned him the White Fang title. It also earned him the ire of Granny Chiyu, who was angry that he killed Sasori's parents, aka her daughter or her son, I can't remember which one. So why wasn't Sakumo Hatake reincarnated? I mean, he's said to have been stronger than all three of the legendary Sannin combined. Seems like he would be an important person for either Kabuto or Orochimaru to bring back. Well, I have a theory about that, but before we get into it, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling like getting a little more NC Hammer content in your life, guys, I created a gaming channel called NC Gamer 23 where I play video games and hang out. I also have a VODs YouTube channel now in case you missed one of my streams, or if you just like watching offline content, or if your schedule never lines up with mine. So Sakumo Hatake, there's a lot of YouTubers out there who will talk about how strong he was, or his life. And while, trust me, the temptation to make some stuff up about Sakumo Hatake is incredible on account of the fact that it gets a ton of clicks, we know nothing about him. Basically everything we know about him, I've already said in this intro. He was Kakashi's father. He fought in the Second Great Shinobi World War where he earned his title of White Fang. He killed Sasori's parents, so we believe that's where he was stationed during the Second Great Shinobi World War. And that's it. Oh, and the stronger than the three legendary Sannin bit, and also you know, Sakumo was a humble man and arguably a very good father to Kakashi. When Might Guy and Kakashi were both leaving the entrance exam for the Ninja Academy, Sakumo said that he hopes Might Guy and Kakashi would be friends to Might Dai, Might Guy's father, because they were both going to be ninjas in the same class. But Might Dai corrected Sakumo and said, well, actually, my son failed the exam. And Kakashi started to make fun of him because he figured there was no worth in him as a ninja if he couldn't use ninjutsu. But Sakumo saw Might Guy and he saw Might Dai and he knew how ardently they worked. And Sakumo actually said to Kakashi, be careful of the way you speak to Might Guy. I've seen how hard he and his father work. One day he might be stronger than you. Which is why when Kakashi is watching Might Guy use the 8 gates, he thinks of Sakumo, realizing in that moment that his father's prophecy has come true. But this speaks to Sakumo's personality. He was an incredibly passionate man who was able to see the power of hard work in others, something many people in the village looked directly over. And this compassion was twofold for his companions. See, Sakumo Hatake got into hot water later in his life when he abandoned a mission to save his comrades. This is because he was a compassionate and caring person who didn't want those around him to die, even if it meant failing a mission. And ultimately, the ridicule and the ire that this decision would bring onto him is what would lead him to his dark depression and his suicide. But he was not often put in the kind of situation where his mission was going to fail, because he was so incredibly powerful that Iwa Shinobi, when they came across Kakashi as a child, were afraid of Kakashi because they thought he was his father. This was obviously during the Third Great Ninja War. And here's the thing, the fact that Iwa Shinobi knew who the White Fang was and knew to be afraid of him implied that Sakumo had not only been in the Hidden Sand, but the Hidden Stone, meaning that he had led successful military campaigns in 2 separate villages. So to say that he was stronger than the legendary Sannin, who couldn't even lead a successful military campaign into the Hidden Rain, isn't crazy. And the success largely rode on the fact that he was an incredibly talented Kenjutsu user. You see, Sakumo had a white light chakra saber. You know how Asuma has his knuckle blades, and he flows chakra in them to increase their range? That's more or less what Sakumo did. He would emit white chakra from this short sword that would leave a streak of white chakra as it was swung, which is how he earned the name White Fang. So how on earth did somebody this powerful end up not being reincarnated? He's just buried in Konoha Cemetery. He is one of the easier bodies to acquire for Kabuto. My theory states essentially that Kabuto did find his body. I mean, it's literally marked. And Kabuto did try to reanimate Sakumo, but Sakumo's soul is not in the Pure Lands, and we actually have evidence to show this. You see, Edo Tensei is not just a summoning of the dead, it is pulling souls out of the Pure Lands, which is canonical Naruto heaven. But there's some rules. If the soul is not in the Pure Lands, that person cannot be reincarnated. If you are in Nagato's King of Hell, if you are in the Shinigami's stomach after using Reaper Death Seal, which is technically limbo, keep that in mind, you will not be able to be summoned, because Edo Tensei is just a bridge between the mortal plane and the Pure Lands, not those other places. And we know where Sakumo's soul is. It's not in the Pure Lands, it's in limbo. But why is his soul in limbo? He didn't use the Reaper Death Seal. He's not in Nagato's King of Hell. He died a natural causes death, sort of. There has been plenty of ninja who took swords to the stomach, died, and then went to the Pure Lands. But Sakumo Hatake is the only person in the entirety of Naruto we've ever seen willingly take his own life. Well, that's not necessarily true. We've seen a couple other ninjas take their own lives. Hiruzen took his own life when he used Reaper Death Seal. Minato did the same thing. Nagato took his own life when he used Rinne Rebirth. Every single one of these people took their own life, just like Sakumo took his own life. But every single one of these people died for a reason, giving their death a cause. And you could say every other person in Naruto had a cause correlated with their death. Nagato was bringing people back to life. Hiruzen was trying to seal Orochimaru. Minato was trying to seal half of the Nine Tails. These deaths are not the same as Sakumo's. In fact, these deaths are the polar opposite of Sakumo's. You see, each of these deaths that I just listed, Nagato, Minato, Hiruzen, they are all ninjas giving their lives for their ninja way. And I think we all know there's nothing more important in the Naruto world than your ninja way. Actually, not following your ninja way is why I believe Jiraiya was never reincarnated. If you haven't seen that video, Nagato was trying to achieve peace. And in order to do that, he realized instead of perpetuating the cycle of hate, he needed to break it by bringing everyone back. Minato was trying to protect his son like he had protected the village his entire life. Hiruzen was trying to rectify the wrongs that he had had with Orochimaru earlier in his life. But Sakumo, the man who decided that his friends and his allies and those close to him were more important than himself, his pride, and his mission, took his own life. And if Sakumo Hatake was just a man and not a father, this would be different. But Kakashi's mother died in childbirth. At least we believe. We know she died when he was very young. Kakashi only had one person left in the world. He wasn't entirely very social, and that was Sakumo. You see, the irony of Sakumo's death is that he was bullied essentially by the village into killing himself for abandoning his mission for his comrades. But by killing himself, he was abandoning his mission as a father and abandoning his comrades, his son. This very moment, this one sweep of a sword is a complete contradiction to Sakumo's entire personality. A usually empathetic and caring man driven to do something incredibly non-caring and empathetic. You see, because there is arguably nothing more selfish than taking your own life. You do not kill yourself, you kill the world. And everybody around you takes the burden of the depression you had in your living life onto them. So in this one final moment of his waking life, he, in the biggest stage possible, abandoned his comrades. And as the only person in Naruto lore who died contradicting his ninja way, he wasn't given the access to the Pure Lands. But was this of his own volition, or was it the volition of a greater being, maybe even a god? You see, there's no real way we can ascertain whether or not it was him or a greater being that kept him out of the Pure Lands. All that we know is that when Kakashi dies of chakra overusage against Nagato, he enters limbo. Because we see Kakashi enter limbo, we can assume that anybody who dies goes to limbo for at least a small amount of time. Or those with massive unresolved feelings on the mortal plane, like Earth, enter limbo if they die. See, Kakashi still felt like he had a lot he needed to accomplish on Earth. He needed to get Sasuke back to the village. He needed to continue training Sasuke and Sakura and Naruto. He had unresolved feelings about Rin and Obito and a lot of things that tied him down to the corporeal plane. And maybe this is why he was shown Sakumo when he died, because a lot of these unresolved feelings tied into his father and his father's death. Regardless, Sakumo Hatake is in limbo and has been since the moment of his death, because Sakumo Hatake realized in his death that he was contradicting the very meaning of his life and was waiting for Kakashi to meet him there so he could apologize and ascend to the Pure Lands. So I know what you're saying. Well, Nick, Sakumo, and Kakashi got to talk when Kakashi died, and therefore Sakumo should have ascended to the Pure Lands, and therefore Sakumo should have been available for reincarnation during the war arc. The only problem with that is that Kakashi and Sakumo's conversation gets cut short by Nagato using Rinne Rebirth and giving everyone's souls back to them. And yes, of course, Kakashi is able to tell Sakumo, his father, that he is proud of him for the decision that he made, because Kakashi knows that Sakumo did what he believed was best, even if it meant rallying against what the village felt. And at the end of their conversation, Sakumo says, "Thank you so much for your forgiveness," and essentially says because he has now been forgiven by Kakashi, he can move on and see his mother. Kakashi's mother, that is, his wife. But I believe that Sakumo is still waiting in limbo for Kakashi. Obviously, Sakumo's largest regret in his life is leaving Kakashi behind. And clearly, Kakashi has forgiven Sakumo for going against the village's wants and saving his comrades. But Kakashi never says anything about forgiving him for committing suicide. And so, as a symbolic act of not leaving Kakashi behind again, Sakumo is waiting in limbo or Kakashi, maybe as an act of penance, or maybe just to soothe his own mind to face Kakashi's mother and his wife. Because imagine that you are Sakumo's wife. You died giving birth to Kakashi, and as opposed to raising Kakashi, you ended your own life. Obviously, depression is a very complicated issue, but you could understand the mother of Kakashi being a bit upset with Sakumo. So to symbolically represent their unionization once again, Sakumo is waiting for it. And this is why Sakumo cannot be brought back using Edo Tensei, because Edo Tensei does not reach into limbo. This is truly the only explanation I can think of to explain why he wouldn't be brought back during the war. His body was accessible, he is incredibly powerful, and he was quite literally shown to be in limbo. If he had moved on after his meeting with Kakashi, there was no excuse for him not to be brought back. I mean, I guess you could say technically he falls into the same camp as Jiraiya, where Kishimoto said he didn't bring Jiraiya back because he doesn't have time and doesn't really know how to write the complex emotions that Naruto would go through if he had to face Jiraiya, except apply that to Kakashi. But at the same time, Gaara fought his own father. Hell, for that matter, Mangetsu got brought back while Suigetsu and Gengetsu were there. Families were forced to fight each other all throughout the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. So obviously, while bringing Sakumo Hatake back to life would bring some complex issues up with Kakashi, I still think it could be a very interesting writing point. One that wouldn't need to take over the entirety of the story, but would give Kakashi an interesting moment for growth. I mean, because think of some of the people that were brought back to life during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War by Kabuto. Gengetsu and Mu had been dead for tens of years. They killed each other during the First Great Shinobi World War. How did Kabuto know where to find the third Raikage's body? It was on a random battlefield somewhere between the Hidden Stone and the Hidden Cloud. There are multiple people that were reincarnated during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War that were incredibly hard to find. Yet Sakumo Hatake is in a named grave in Konoha, and yet he wasn't brought back to life. I truly think my theory is the only one that makes a lot of sense as to why this wouldn't happen. But what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below. And while you're down there, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if this video's left you guys itching for a little bit more NC Hammer 23 content, guys, go ahead and follow my other YouTube page, NC Gamer 23, for gaming content, or my other YouTube page, NC Hammer 23 VODs, for, you know, offline looks at what my Twitch streams look like if you just happen to don't match up in schedules with me for my Twitch streams. Listen, I wish I could be the YouTuber who was gonna make up a bunch of facts about Sakumo Hatake, about how he fought Minato to see who was gonna be the next Hokage and kill 10,000 shinobi, but that's unfortunately not who I am. We know very little about one of the coolest characters in the history of Naruto, and maybe one day we'll know more, but most likely not.